Okay, so as in the last video I made, I told you I was going to make a video about the Swiss gold referendum that's coming up on November 30th. So I encourage everyone that is watching this video who has friends, acquaintances, colleagues, family in Switzerland to please forward this on to them because even though most people are going to watch this and say, oh, this doesn't really affect me, and of course it's not going to, because there's only about 8 million people that live in Switzerland. So, but the Swiss gold referendum actually affects everyone. So I'm going to explain in this video why. So actually even I encourage everyone to pass this video on to all of your friends and colleagues, no matter where they live in the world, because this is going to affect everyone in the world, and this is the importance of this referendum. So to begin with, like I said, Switzerland is only a country that has a little over 8 million people living in it, but yet any referendum that comes up for vote in legislation has to get at least 100,000 signatures, and then by law it has to go to vote. So 100,000 signatures is not a small feat in a country of only 8 million. So this is something that enough people in Switzerland want and desire. So the importance of this, like, there's another referendum that came up with a minimum wage requirement of at least 22 Swiss francs, which per hour, which translates it over to more than $23 per hour, because the Swiss franc is stronger than the US dollar at this point. So that's a huge, huge minimum wage, right? $23 per hour. That would be the minimum that came up. Although that vote did not pass, the reason why that came up, you'll see, is because the fact that central bankers have destroyed the valuation, the purchasing power of the Swiss franc. So it actually relates to the reason that would even come up and get 100,000 signatures to go to vote is because the Swiss franc has been systematically destroyed. The future of all Swiss has been systematically destroyed by the bankers. So let's go through a little history so you understand what the Swiss gold referendum is about. Okay, so the Swiss gold referendum says that at least 20% of all the reserves, of all the assets of the Swiss National Bank has to be gold. Okay, so it says you got to return the amount to at least 20% of all assets held by the Swiss National Bank will be held in gold. Also says that all Switzerland's gold must be repatriated to Switzerland. Okay, so a lot of this gold now is held outside of Switzerland. So the referendum says that this gold must be repatriated and held within the borders of the homeland. And the last part of the Swiss gold referendum says the Swiss National Bank shall never be allowed to sell gold again. So that's really important because if they can repatriate their gold, which I doubt anyways, because Thomas Jordan, who's the president of the SNB, Swiss National Bank, revealed that 70% of Switzerland's gold is within the borders of the homeland, and 20% with the Bank of England, and 10% with the Bank of Canada. But I doubt those figures. If they ask for repatriation, Bank of England probably does not have any of Switzerland's gold anymore, and I doubt that the Bank of Canada does either. Although there's a better chance the Bank of Canada still may have Switzerland's gold, and certainly the Bank of England. So that's one reason why the bankers will likely rig this vote to fail, because it will expose the emperor as having no clothes, as the Germans did with the US Federal Reserve when they asked for their gold back. And then the Fed said, oh, you can't have it back, but we'll give you a timeline of like I believe it was 7 years to get their gold returned. And a certain amount was supposed to be returned every year, and the US Federal Reserve only returned a fraction of that last year, only 5 tons. And the 5 tons they returned wasn't even Germany's gold. So it was gold that had been melted down and refabricated and then sent back to Germany. So who knows where that gold came from? Maybe it was gold stolen from Gaddafi in Libya. It could have been gold that Goldman Sachs had taken from Ecuador. Though actually I think that happened after those 5 tons were sent back to Germany. So, but that gold could have been taken from a whole number of different countries that NATO has invaded in recent years and basically stolen the gold, those countries' gold reserves. So that's really important because the Swiss National Bank has in the past sold off over 1,550 tons, I believe, of the people's gold in Switzerland for prices that are Gordon Brown-like, between like $300 to $500 per ounce. They sold over 1,500 tons of gold. So they basically mortgaged away Switzerland's future, just as Gordon Brown did at the Bank of England when he sold half of England's gold for the bottom of about $250 per ounce back in the day. So what's really interesting, okay, is I'm going to show you a graph of how the Swiss franc has performed against the euro. Okay, so the graph's too small to really see what's going on. So just look at the arrows of when the Swiss franc has appreciated versus the euro, and then look at the two circles that I produced on the chart. The green circle that marks the recent high of the Swiss franc against the euro, and then the red circle of today. So I'm going to insert that right now. So if you look at that chart, you'll see from the onset of the global financial crisis in 2008, which by the way has not ended, although all the global leaders are selling their narrative of bogus recovering economies that simply is not happening right now. It's just happening through their manufactured, artificial, fake, official economic indicators and stats that they're spewing that are totally bogus. But in any event, you see that the Swiss franc versus the euro soared from 2008 to about mid-2011, right? So what was going on back then is, in order to bail out the banks, all these central banks all around the world were creating trillions and trillions and trillions of paper fiat currencies out of thin air. So that was degrading their valuation against the Swiss franc, which was still unofficially backed by the highest amount of gold in the world. So as of just even 2009, the Swiss franc was still backed by 18% of gold unofficially. So that's why people were holding on to the Swiss franc. But when that happened, the Swiss National Bank intervened and they said, hey, we can't let this happen. This is good for the people, bad for us, and bad for the 1% in our country. So we're going to do anything to make the Swiss franc weaker. And in fact, they proclaimed in 2011 that we will print unlimited supply of Swiss francs to degrade the valuation and keep it under 1.2 versus the euro. So since then, as you could see from the top, which is circled in green, when it went down to the chart in red, it went to a low in 2013 where it lost about 18% against the euro. So it's been coming back a little bit, but this referendum will definitely make the Swiss franc strengthen against the euro if it goes through in a positive vote. And I believe the vote will be positive, the majority of the vote will be yes. But I think the bankers will rig it, the results, to say no, unfortunately. By the way, this video is going to be two parts. I had to split it up into two parts because it ran a little bit over 15 minutes. So please do come back and watch part two. The reason I have to split it into two is because YouTube somehow, for some reason, just sent me a notification this week saying I am limited to 15-minute videos. So they took away my privileges of making longer than 15-minute videos. I don't know why. I don't know if they're that the stuff I'm saying is too sensitive for them and they want to try to censor me, but for whatever reason now, it's probably good anyways. My video should be shorter than 15, but this one is super important. There's a lot of important information in the second part of this video, so please come back and watch part two of this video as well. Okay, thanks again for watching today, and as always, remain intensely curious. So long.